Hello and welcome back to the Cosmic Vortex. My name is Troy, and in today's video I'm doing my first piece of Doctor Who content for the channel since we've got a week off where there's no Marvel content going on. And because there's no news for Series 13 that's worth talking about that isn't already something that happened ages ago, I figured what I'd do for this video is give you a bit of an idea as to my taste in Doctor Who, so you got a bit more of an idea of the things I liked and didn't like about the show as some kind of introduction to future Doctor Who content. So what I'm going to be doing is making a tier list here, ranking every single series from the modern run of Doctor Who in a tier list you can see on screen. It's been made by a friend of mine, Crispy Pro. Really cool Doctor Who YouTuber. If you aren't already subscribed to him, you should be. Go amend that. A link to his channel will be in the description. But like I said, I'm just basically going to break down all the seasons, which ones I like more, which ones I dislike more, and rank them all up. But to be honest, I'm hoping this will be quite a positive review because there's no seasons here that I particularly dislike that much, but I do have varying opinions on some of them. So let's not mess around anymore. Let's get right into it and rank the series, and start off with the very first one, Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper in Series 1 of Doctor Who. This series was a really good start for the show. It kicked it off after 16 years of it not being on screen, after not having any more series, and it did it really well. Russell T Davies was a fantastic showrunner. He really hit the ground running with this series, and I don't really think there's any particular duds in this series either. The only one I'm not quite as big on is The Long Game, but that's just me not being as keen on Adam, and he was a main part of that episode. And yes, I did like the Slitheen episodes. I really like the Slitheen. They're one of my favourite monsters, so that already gives you an impression of my kind of taste in this series. But to me, it was a really strong series. It's not one of my favourites, but I like a lot of the episodes, so it goes for me in the A tier. Moving on, next we've got Series 2, David Tennant and Billie Piper, and honestly, probably my least favourite season of David Tennant's. I don't dislike it by any means whatsoever, but when you compare it to the stories in Series 3 and Series 4, I just don't think it holds up as much. But that being said, I did really enjoy the dynamic between Ten and Rose, the kind of burgeoning romance they had between them, and I really loved, or should I say hated, the Doomsday Goodbye. That whole episode is an emotional roller coaster and a massive gut punch, so it's a little bit difficult for me to put it in a ranking either way, but I think I'm going to be harsh on it and put it in the B tier, only because I don't think that it's the best series ever, and I'm also trying to think ahead with other series as to where they might compare with that season, so I think B is a safe tier for that one. Moving on next to Series 3 with David Tennant and Freema Agyeman, the series of Martha Jones, and actually the series that got me into the show. When Doctor Who came back, I was only 5 years old and didn't really know a lot about the show, but when it came around to Series 3, I was 7, and I really liked the look of the show. I saw a trailer, I think, and just wanted to try it out, and immediately fell in love with the show, and part of that is down to David, but also down to Freema. I really liked their dynamic. The only issue I have with this season, looking back on it now, is that it's very clear how much of a rebound character Martha was, and I do think that suffered on her character development a little bit. Personally, I would have loved to have seen Martha just come into her own a bit more and not have to constantly be compared to Rose by 10. It just got a bit irritating at times. But you've also got stories like Human Nature and the Family of Blood. You've got the 3-part finale with the Master, and I don't think the finale was as bad as everyone else makes out. I really liked it. And then there's also the episode that everyone thinks is the worst for the season, The Lazarus Experiment, which for some reason for years was my favourite episode as a child, so I can't really put much hate on that either. To me, Series 3 is a fantastic series. I really want to put it in S, but there are other seasons I think that just top it a little bit, so I'm going to put it in A tier, but it is a very high A, because I really am very hesitant to put it in between those two tiers. It belongs somewhere in between, but not quite at S. Moving on next to Series 4, featuring Catherine Tate and David Tennant, the final season with David as Doctor, and also his best season. I honestly just absolutely loved this season. It was so good. There were fantastic episodes right across the board, and Catherine Tate was fantastic as Donna. And I also really liked that they got rid of a lot of the Rose elements. I know she was kind of like the returning character in the finale, and that was all great. I loved all of that, but I liked that the series had room to breathe, and Rose wasn't mentioned at every single point in time. Donna had a chance to be the Doctor's best friend, and their chemistry was really believable and honestly quite fantastic. And I'll always remember the excitement I had at the season finale after David Tennant was supposedly going to be leaving the show when he regenerated at the end of the Stolen Earth. Not to mention all the hype and excitement and confusion surrounding that cliffhanger around the country at the time that it aired. It was absolutely fantastic, and it was so cool to be a part of that fan base. To me, Series 4 is an easy S tier. It just is a fantastic series, and I really don't think it can go in any other tier than S. And so now we come to Series 5, featuring Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor and Stephen Moffat as the new showrunner. And at this point, there was a very serious tone shift. It became more like a fairy tale rather than the kind of soap opera style that Russell T Davies went for. There were a lot of people who say that Series 5 was a far standout out of Matt's series and that 5 easily beat 6 and 7. I'm of a more kind of average mind across 5 to 7 because I really liked all 3 of these seasons. Now, Series 5 had some really strong episodes, and it was a really good opener for Matt Smith as a Doctor, where a lot of people didn't have a lot of faith in him. They didn't think that Matt Smith could do anything near what David Tennant did, and they kind of thought the show would be a write-off. It's a common theme with Doctor Who fans. But he stuck the landing and was absolutely brilliant. He was a really strong Doctor, and the stories in Series 5 are phenomenal. You've got the 11th Hour, which is a fantastic opener, a really strong set piece there. You've also got the fantastic Weeping Angel 2-parter, The Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone, which to me is far better than people make out. I think a lot of people say Weeping Angels got a lot worse as time went by. I think the stories were all good in their own unique ways. Blink is always going to be a classic, but The Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone, and then also The Angels Take Manhattan, which I'll get into in a minute, are all fantastically strong Weeping Angel stories. I don't don't think any are particularly worse than each other. They're all good in their own rights because they take Weeping Angels at different angles and different stories. So while I am a little bit unsure, I do think that personally the hype I had for Series 5 and the amount of excitement there was building up to the finale with the Pandorica and the Big Bang, I just kind of think it has to go in S tier. I think it's a fantastic series. It just makes it up there. I think there's going to be roughly 3 seasons to put in S tier, and that's probably the lowest of the 3, but it's still a very, very, very good series, hence why it's in that tier. And as for Series 6, I loved that they made Rory a full-time companion, and I really, really liked the constant referencing of River Song, her being in it a lot more, and also the reveal that she is in fact Melody Pond, Amy and Rory's daughter. It's fair to say that Series 6 became a lot more dependent on its overarching story and the fact that the Doctor was supposedly going to die at Lake Silencio in Utah, and it was building up to that. And my only issue with Series 6 is I really would have liked a 2-part finale. I know why there wasn't, and it kind of makes sense, but the finale is still quite strong. But I personally just don't believe it's quite as strong as the 2-part finale of Series 5, so I think really Series 6 has to go in the A tier. It's a very strong A, but not quite good enough for S. And then we come to Series 7, which gets so much hate, and a lot of people try to say that it's the worst series of Doctor Who in the modern run. I really just don't feel that way. There are the occasional issues I have with stories, such as in Dinosaurs in a Spaceship, when Matt Smith's Doctor just seems to let some guy die because he was bad. Didn't really seem like the Doctor to not be forgiving, so that was a bit odd. That was one thing I picked up on. But for Series 7A, I loved the single story thing that were building up like it was a blockbuster every week, an interesting story, a cool little idea, even if some of them were executed better than others. And then The Angels Take Manhattan was a fantastic finale for Amy and Rory, again presents the Weeping Angels in a different light, and I really liked it. And then with Series 7B, to be fair, a lot of the judgment there could boil down to whether you like or dislike Clara. I'm personally in the like camp. I really, really liked her character, although I have some issues with it I'll get into shortly. But then you've also got Matt Smith's much better second outfit. I'm sorry, his purple coat and the bow tie and waistcoat and everything was so much better than Series 5's. I do still love the Series 5 look, don't get me wrong. And I think this series managed to land the 1-part finale better than Series 6. I think The Name of the Doctor was a really cool and interesting story, and also tied up this impossible girl arc for Clara that I really liked. So for me, Series 7 is stronger than people make out. I think that's also an A-tier series. And that brings an end to Matt Smith's run as the Doctor, and now we come on to my boy, my favourite Doctor, Peter Capaldi. Starting off with Series 8. Now, I'm really torn as to whether I prefer Series 8 or Series 9 for Capaldi. I think I might slightly prefer Series 9, but I'm not entirely sure on that one. The issue I have with Series 8, quite simply, is the way Clara is sometimes. I don't mind this issue in Series 9 because it becomes more of a character arc about trying to become the Doctor, but in Series 8, I just feel like she overpowers him a bit too much. I just feel like sometimes the roles feel a little bit reversed, and Clara acted more like the Doctor and tried to boss around 12, which I didn't really like. One moment in particular that stands out to me being Into the Dalek, where she literally just slaps the 12th Doctor because she doesn't like what he's saying. I just think that Clara's personality was a bit too commanding there. I did really like her still, but that was an issue I had with this series. But you also had the Missy reveal. Michelle Gomez was absolutely fantastic. And then you also have one of the only episodes of the show that I really, really, really dislike, in The Forest of the Night. You'll notice I didn't mention Love and Monsters earlier. I liked Love and Monsters. Get over it. I don't want to put it in B tier, but I think just for the few issues I have with the series, I think it kind of has to go in B tier. But that's not forgetting some of the fantastic stories it has, such as Mummy on the Orient Express and Flatline. Some really good singular stories in this series, so I really wish I could put it in A, but I think just for the sake of being a bit fair and spreading seasons across a bit more, it's got to go in B. Moving on next to Series 9, the series of 2-parters, and 12's Doctor really starts to lighten up a bit more, become a bit more friendly, a bit more outgoing, caring, and not the stern outlook we had in Series 8. And the 2-parters are, for the most part, very, very strong. The opening Dalek 2-parter that I really liked brought back Davros. He had a really good rapport with the 12th Doctor. That worked really well. The Flood and the Ghosts 2-parter, which was also very strong, was a nice, interesting new idea for Doctor Who. The Girl Who Died and the Woman Who Lived, less so. I really liked Maisie Williams, even as me in this show. I think her character was really cool, but the stories themselves, a little bit on the weak side. Not a massive fan of either of those. But then you have the Zygon Invasion and Zygon Inversion 2-parter, where Peter Capaldi's speech is one of his best moments as the Doctor, and that completely counteracts those last 2 episodes. And then you've got Heaven Sent. I mean, you can't really get any better than Heaven Sent. That is a fantastic and potentially best episode of Doctor Who in the entire modern run. Peter Capaldi killed it for 50 minutes on his own, doing everything himself and controlling the entire scenario. It was the point where Clara was gone and 12 really began to shine for me. Not to say I didn't love him beforehand, I did, but I just think at this point you really got to see him without that overarching companion next to him. For me, Series 9 is easily an A-tier series. I just think it's absolutely brilliant, and there are so many good, strong episodes in it that it deserves to be up there. Oh, and I liked Hellbent too. Deal with it. But now we come on to my favourite series with Peter Capaldi, Series 10. I've got to be honest with you here, and this is the point where I'll explain my attitude towards Peter Capaldi. When I first watched his series with Series 8 and Series 9, I really liked his Doctor, but I didn't love him, and to me it was always a debate between David and Matt as to who was the best Doctor, and Capaldi was a bit underneath that. But when Series 10 came along, everything changed, and I really, really began to love Peter Capaldi's Doctor, and it kind of links to the same reason I had earlier with why Series 8 suffered a little bit because of Clara. When Bill comes into it, she's a proper companion. She doesn't take much command over the Doctor. She knows the place, the person who's being taught everything, and not the person telling the Doctor what to do. And Bill and 12 are a fantastic combination combination. The chemistry between Peter and Pearl was absolutely flawless. And I even really liked Matt Lucas as Nardole. I thought he was a bit annoying in the Series 9 Christmas special. He was better in The Return of Dr. Mysterio, but in Series 10, he got given a proper character. He was interesting, and he was really quite funny. I think the relationship these three people had was absolutely brilliant, and I really wish it had gone on for more than one series, but it did end with a bang in potentially my favorite two-parter of the entire show, World Enough and Time and The Doctor Falls. I will never not be blown away by the relationship between Peter and Pearl and Matt and Michelle Gomez and John Simm's master coming back. If only the BBC hadn't revealed that. If only we didn't know that going into the episode, it would have made it so much better, but that episode was still like a strong 9, 10 out of 10 for me. So it's a really powerful season that really got me to fall in love with Peter Capaldi, and when I rewatched all his seasons last year, I really began to see the same traits across all 3 seasons, and that's the point where Peter Capaldi became my personal favourite Doctor. So if it wasn't already obvious, Series 10 easily goes in S tier for me. It's just my favourite series of the show, tied with 4. Those 2 seasons are like where I define Doctor Who to be at its strongest. And so that's Stephen Moffat's era brought to an end, as is Peter Capaldi's, leaving us finally with Jodie Whittaker and the showrunner Chris Chibnall. The interesting thing with these series is if you'd asked me to make this tier list the way I did actually personally myself about a year or 2 ago, I would have easily put these 2 at very low ranks, maybe C's for both of them, maybe a B and a C, I don't know. I did like Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, but I just did not gel well with the stories. I didn't like in Series 11 that there was no new monsters, and in Series 12, I just kind of feel like it lost steam towards the end, especially with the Timeless Child reveal. But since I've rewatched them on the lead up to Revolution of the Daleks, my mind has again, like Capaldi's, completely changed. I gave Series 11 a proper chance and actually went into it knowing what was coming, and I found I enjoyed both series a lot more. Series 11 is still weaker to me because I do think it suffered in not having returning monsters, and the finale is probably my least favourite finale of all of Doctor Who, but I did like it a lot more on the second watch, so I don't think I dislike any finales. So while you've got some very strong episodes like The Woman Who Fell to Earth, which personally might be my favourite first Doctor episode of all of them, but then you've also got episodes like The Witchfinders and The Battle of Ranskor Kolos, I don't quite know whether it belongs in the B tier or whether it falls ever so slightly into the C tier. Because if you ask me which series I'd rather watch out of 2, 8 and 11, I'd battle between 2 and 8, and 11 would probably come a bit underneath. So while I really don't want to put a series in the C tier, I think Series 11 has to go in there only because I just don't think it's quite up to snuff with the rest of the seasons. But I do still really like it. There are still some very strong stories in there. Woman Who Fell to Earth, Rosa, Demons of the Punjab. There are some really, really good stories in there, but I just feel overall the series could have been a bit stronger. But then we come to our most recent series, Series 12, and this honestly was a massive turnaround for Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, and the point where really I honestly began to really like her character a lot more than I already was. To the point where 13 is easily a very, very strong Doctor for me, and I'm a massive fan of hers now. Even though I wasn't as keen on the Jodie Whittaker era when it was first airing, when that Master reveal happened in Spyfall Part 1, I lost it completely. I was so blown away by it. I thought Sacha Dhawan was fantastic, and he still is now. I really, really hope he comes back in Series 13. And there are very few episodes in this series that I really don't like. The only one that obviously a lot of people don't like, and I also don't really like, is Orphan 55. It had good elements to it, but I just think that Earth twist and the lecture at the end of it was really, really sore to watch. You've probably seen enough videos complaining about Orphan 55. I don't want to join that club too much. But the finale of Ascension of the Cybermen and the Timeless Children, whether you like that reveal or not, is still a very strong finale. And when it's also supported by the preceding episode, The Haunting of Villa Diodati, you've got a really, really strong season of Doctor Who here. So for me, this series goes in A tier. I would probably watch some episodes in Series 12 before episodes of Series 2 and Series 8. Depends on the episodes. Obviously, there are some that, don't fit that statement, but generally, I'd probably wager it like that. And so there is my final tier list ranking for the Doctor Who modern series. There isn't a series of Doctor Who that I dislike, as it's quite obvious. I do have my gripes with certain seasons, but every single season has at least 1 or 2 standout episodes that make that season unique, and I really love them for that. But I really hope you enjoyed this tier list video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think about the Doctor Who modern series in the comments section down below. And a link to the tier list will be in the description, as will be a link to Crispy Pro's YouTube channel. Like I said, please go subscribe to him. But I will leave it there. Thank you all very much for watching the Cosmic Vortex. I'll be back next weekend with a brand new video. I'm not quite sure what it'll be, but it'll be something to do with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I might do something a bit different this time rather than full breakdowns, but either way, I will see you all next week with a brand new video. Until then, look after yourselves, stay safe, and thanks for watching the Cosmic Vortex.